This is Tony Marion with ETHOSystems. On the call, we have Britton Bauer with hh2. He's going to walk through. The document flow portion of their program. hh2 and ETHOSystems have been partnered for, oh gosh, years and years and years and years. Love our partnership. Love hh2. hh2 is partnered with many partners and many platforms. So whether you're using Sage 100, Sage 300, or Sage Intact, or potentially some other name that we don't support, but they're integrated with them. So just in an effort to keep things smooth and clean, we're going to stay muted today. If you do have questions, both myself and Britton can see the questions and the chat portion. Either one works for me. So with that, I am going to just turn it over to Britton to go forward with the presentation. And again, thank you everybody for attending today. We do appreciate it, and we'll share the recording after it is published. All right, Britton, over to you, buddy.
Awesome, thank you. Appreciate the intro there, Tony. And as always, thank you for the opportunity and letting us present to your customer base and hopefully being productive today with sharing something out that might help streamline some processes for your clients. Again, my name is Britton Bauer. I'm the Director of Sales here at hh2. I'll be conducting this presentation. As we walk through the presentation, I will pause periodically to just check for understanding, see if there are any questions, comments, concerns, side notes that might be beneficial as we walk through this product. The goal here today is to help you see how hh2 can help streamline your AP processes. Now, today's presentation is going to be focused on our credit card portion of our document flow product. We'll cover some other areas that are available in a high level, but the goal today is to walk through hh2 from our AP credit card process and solution. Now, hh2 is a fully hosted cloud solution. So we're starting just understanding a little bit about hh2 as a company. We've been around for over 18 years, providing construction-specific solutions. We have interfaces for web browsers, phones, and tablets. So really easy to utilize hh2 from devices you already have. Now, as I mentioned, this product handles a number of different AP-related items. In this presentation, we're going to walk through how the product works, but we're going to focus on company credit cards and reimbursements. The product has a customized approval workflow that is built in as well, and we also handle your standard AP invoices as well as a few other features. Again, not the focus of today's presentation, but just be aware of that. Now, hh2's document flow solution integrates directly with your accounting system. And I'd love to launch a quick poll here just to see what accounting systems our attendees have. You're likely on Sage 300 CRE or Sage 100 Contractor. So if you want to go ahead and just let us know what you're on, be helpful as we kind of walk through the presentation here. So it looks like we've got some, everyone's on Sage 300. So that makes it really clean and easy today. So when we talk about this integration, we'll go ahead and close that poll. The integration means that we're pulling data directly from your Sage 300 CRE accounting system, and we're syncing that up to the cloud, and that is continuous and ongoing. So when you add new vendors, jobs, cost codes, or other relevant information into the accounting system, hh2 is going to pick that up automatically and pull it into the cloud. Once you have the data in hh2, it can be used anywhere there's connectivity. If you're in the home office, logged into our web browser interface, you're out in the field or traveling, you're working from home, you can use our phones, tablets, or maybe just a web browser on your laptop. So you have a lot of choices staying connected through hh2 in the cloud. Now, at the end of the process, to get the data back in, it seamlessly integrates by pushing the data directly back in. So for today's purposes, we're going to have AP information pushing directly into Sage. Now, I mentioned a couple different types of items that we support. Just want to understand from those three items I covered, and again, what we're going to focus on today, curious what our attendees are hoping to get out of today. What's your pain point or what's your area of need? Is it mostly on credit cards? reimbursements as well. So it looks like we got a good balance across them. So that's great. We're going to focus on those today. I always like to get a feel of what you're actually looking for so we can make this valuable rather than just pitching a general pitch. So that's great. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's dive right into the product here. We've covered a couple high-level items, which I think have been great, and I appreciate everyone's participation in our polls. I think that's been very helpful. All right, so the picture we want to paint for you today is your process of getting company credit cards and reimbursements from your guys in the field with relevant information, and somehow get that into your accounting system. Now we find that everyone's a little bit different, so as much as we'd love to unmute everyone and hear how you're doing it today, we're gonna go through a few assumptions and throw out a few scenarios to help you understand how hh2 can help. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and pull up my phone here, and we're gonna talk through what it looks like to use hh2's product and some of the areas that we can streamline. So from a process standpoint, what we're trying to solve for is make it easier to get the relevant information from the field to the office. And the way that hh2 can help with this is oftentimes your users have a company credit card or they buy things on their personal card or with cash, whatever they might be using. And we need to get that information of what they bought and why more easily and more efficiently. So what we have in our system is we have our hh2 document flow app. This is available for iOS and Android devices. And right from their phone, once they make a purchase, they can just press on the app and open a shortcut. And I'll show you another option as well, but this is a really cool tool. And I can simply tap on capture receipt. And all it's gonna do is pull up my camera. Right in front of me, I have a receipt that's just sitting on my desk. Go ahead and grab that here. And I'm going to go ahead and save that. So I've made a purchase. I've snapped a copy or a photo of that receipt right in front of me. Okay, really, really simple. Now I'm going to zoom in here just so you can get an idea of this particular receipt. So this is a fuel receipt from a local fuel center here in Utah. My total is $52.53. It was on my American Express there. And then you can see that was on November 12th. Well, when your user comes in and uses hh2 to capture a receipt, they tap on this orange auto OCR button. It's going to grab the information and actually plug in the detail right here to fill out some of our header information. So it did a really good job. Grab the date, grab the amount, and it tries to grab a description of what we were doing or where we were at. Now, if I'm not happy with that, I can go ahead and just clear that off, and I can type something in. Or next to that, I can tap on this little capture button and it will pull up the information on the receipt. And maybe I want to go up here and say we were at the Smith's Fuel Center and grab that data. So a couple nice little tools there to make this quick and efficient. Now that I've captured the information about the purchase, down at the bottom, there's a little orange button that says submit to code receipt. And I'm going to be able to actually job cost that. Okay, let me go ahead and clear out of that. So every company is a little bit different, but essentially we're going to provide some information of what this purchase was for and how do we need to document this expense. So some companies will utilize jobs, cost codes, and categories, fairly common for construction companies. Some people will code this to an overhead or an expense account, to equipment. Maybe they'll add notes or other comments. And hh2 is going to make that available based on the information you're already using in Sage, because we sync this over. So if you want to code to a job, we're going to synchronize and make available a list of your jobs. You can search for a particular job by name or number. When I go to pick from my list of cost codes, I'm going to see cost codes that are set up on that job. All right, that's again pulling from what's actually set up in the accounting system. I can scroll through, find the one I want. And then last but not least, if you're doing a job in a cost code, we can specify the category this applies to. Again, the category is simply coming from what you have set up for that cost code in that job. Now, if that's all the employee is doing, great, they could be done. Some companies will have things coded to an expense or overhead account. We support that as well. And one thing I always like to note is if you're a company that has a lot of overhead accounts, this might be tedious. So you can see this massive list I have showing here. And most companies don't want that. So in hh2, we can limit which GL accounts you show to certain employees. So you might say, you know what, our project managers, they only need to see 10 GL accounts. That's all that's relevant to them. We could limit this list down, and then they could go ahead and pick the appropriate one. Okay. So again, just depends on how you're typically capturing information right now and what you're requiring to keep these items documented. Now, if you code things to multiple jobs and cost codes, if I jump back here, I can break this distribution out. So maybe I want to say, you know, $10 of this is going to be broken out, and I'm going to say that goes to a different cost code or different job, different category. Again, all that's going to be available. I'll just change the cost code for that example. And that's it. Snap the photo, OCR, and do a short bit of coding. Now, some companies also like to be able to add some more detailed notes. Rather than typing in the data, I can tap on my microphone and I can simply begin speaking about why I purchased this item. Really, really simple. Okay, so from here, we've captured all the information and the end user is done. They can just save it. They'll save button up here and they can move on with their day. That receipt information will sync up to the cloud, and we'll talk about what we do with it after. Now, before we move on, I want to make sure that there are no questions or feedback maybe with how you're doing things or the type of information you're coding when it comes to capturing a receipt. And then we'll talk a little bit about the difference between a company credit card and a reimbursement. Okay, so just give it just a minute here, see if there are any questions there. Again, feel free to use that questions panel. We want to make sure we dive into the details here to make this very useful for all of our attendees.
And so far, I haven't seen any questions I wasn't able to answer.
Perfect. All right, that's great, Tony. So in our receipt detail here, if I scroll up to the top, we have a couple fields here. One that says the credit card number. In our system, we set up credit card numbers beforehand and we assign them to users. That's how we know what items they're responsible for and they're submitting. Above that, we have a field for the type of receipt. This is a company credit card receipt. If you wanted to allow your employees to also, or in place of, submit reimbursements, if they don't have a company card, they can do that as well. The information is almost identical. The only difference is there's no credit card number assigned to them because they're simply requesting reimbursement for something they purchased. Very simple, very easy to be able to capture that information in. Now, again, once they're done, they go and save it and just close out of that, and they can move on to capture additional receipts or whatever they might need. Okay, so that's what we're doing from the end user perspective. Now we have everything documented digitally. It's synced up to hh2 in the cloud, and we're able to go through some different steps to validate this information and run it through a customized approval process within hh2. So we're going to move away from the phone here just for a minute, and we're going to talk through what hh2 does with the information after it's been captured in the field. Okay, so there's two concepts we're going to cover. The first one, and I'm going to pull over my web browser to talk about this, we're going to walk through an approval process. So as part of our setup in hh2 from a web browser, I'm logged in right now as an admin. I'll click on the AP icon and I'm going to pull up one of my setup screens called a workflow setup. A workflow is a fancy name for your approval process. As part of the implementation of this product, we'll be able to create a customized approval of what happens once these transactions are submitted from your reimbursements or company credit card, and who needs to review them and why. We have some really cool tools here. This is where you actually build the workflow in kind of a Visio flowchart type interface. You'll be able to add steps of approval, whether it goes to someone because of the job they're responsible for. Maybe you have people that are over certain GL accounts. We can route and review based on people's roles in the system. We can have named users that are always part of the approval process be added here. And then we have different branching logic. So like in this example, if it's not job costed, we can make sure purchases go back to the cardholder. If it is, we make sure that it goes to the next step of approval to ensure that items don't move past a certain level unless they have the correct information. And this workflow is pretty simple. I have it going to a project manager, to a geo manager, and then we have the workflow ending and that information getting pushed into the accounting system. Okay, so regardless of your needs, we can customize the workflow for your company. You can add different routing rules based on dollar amounts, and there's a lot of fancy stuff you can do, but we find that most people keep it fairly simple. We want to help you understand how robust the system can be. Okay, now that we've talked a little bit about the workflow, let's talk a little bit about how we make sure that we reconcile and account for all the credit card purchases. So in hh2, we have a function that your admins can utilize to import your credit card transactions into hh2. Now, this is a really simple step. Whether this is done weekly, bi-weekly, or monthly, you import your credit card transactions or your credit card statement, depending on how often you're doing this. And this allows us to know what purchases actually showed up and posted on the credit card statement, and you'll simply import them. The data will look something like this. We'll have the transaction ID, the date, the amount, the card number, maybe the store or location of where you bought something at. And you'll be able to just download those down to a CSV or Excel and drop them into our system each week. Once we do that, what we're going to do is we're going to look and see and automatically match up if there's already a receipt in the system. So let's assume that we captured a receipt today. That user was right on top of things and they bought something, and at the time of purchase, they uploaded the information. Well, when we import the transactions, we're going to take the image and all the coding, and we're going to blend these together. Now we've validated the purchase, we have the backup information that we need, and we've tied those together. And then as we looked at that approval process, you can route it for different approvals, again, depending on your company's needs. After that, it's simply something that's getting reviewed and approved and can be pushed into the accounting system. So that's the perfect scenario. You got your awesome employees that capture these receipts and they code them at the time of purchase, and life is good. Well, unfortunately, life is always not that perfect. We are going to have people that don't capture their receipts. And we always get the question, well, what happens if I have guys that don't input the information? What happens to those transactions? How do we account for those? hh2, when we do the import, if the receipt is not found and we have nothing to match the purchase up to, hh2 will send an alert and push notification, or just send into the employee's queue all the purchases that are assigned to them. Because remember, we've created the card numbers and assigned them to users in hh2. Once that's done, the user will have a queue of maybe 10 purchases that they've made and we need information for. Using those routing rules, we've routed to the cardholder because they're responsible for that purchase. Once that's done, they can snap the receipt and code it. It's the same function. They're just doing it after the fact and being prompted to, rather than doing it at the time of purchase. Now, obviously, one is easier than the other from a functionality standpoint, but we know that we don't live in a perfect world, and as nice as that would be, we have to be able to account for both scenarios. Okay, so once that all happens, we do the import, we have the receipts captured, they're simply going through a review and approval process. And that's the next thing we're going to take a look at. If I'm reviewing purchases, what do I need to do and what options do I have in hh2? Okay, so what we're going to do right now is we're going to move out of the web browser and we're going to take a look at reviewing any credit card purchases from a few different devices. So we'll go back to the phone here. We'll take a peek at that. Well, that's pulling up here. Tony, I assume we haven't had any other questions so far that you weren't
Nope.
able to get to in that chat?
Yep, nothing so far I'm stumped on.
Perfect. All right, so in hh2's document flow app, as I mentioned earlier, we can send a notification. A lot of our customers use our daily digest notification that sends an email or a push notification once a day and just lets the users know what's waiting on their attention. Well, in our our queue here, we call anything that's waiting on approval an invoice. So as I mentioned earlier, we support company credit cards, we support reimbursements, and we also support your standard vendor invoices. And we can see all of those here that are currently assigned to me. And you'll notice here we have a little icon here that says Visa. There's another one that represents a reimbursement that are stuck in this queue. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and tap right on that credit card purchase. And here we have, there's the actual image. Up at the top there, I can view the header information. All right, that was filled out previously. And then I can see what this was coded to. Now, in this particular example, this is one that hasn't been coded, it got routed back to me. So I'm going to go ahead and just apply this to an overhead account. Okay, go ahead and pick from that. That's a poor example there. We'll just grab that right there. Once it's coded, I can review the image. We even have some annotation fields available. If I wanted to be able to draw on this, I could do so. And then I can go ahead and just save or approve it and move on. Again, very simple. There's a lot of other functions, like you can add notes and other details, but again, we want to keep it very simple. Okay. Now, if it was a reimbursement, it'd be almost identical. The biggest difference is in the header information, the vendor is the person getting paid. So this is our American Express. If it was a reimbursement, it would be one of my employees that would be getting paid back. Okay. And that's how easy it is to do from the phone. Again, right from the palm of your hand, view all the relevant information and approve that detail. Now, we have a similar interface for a tablet. Let's go ahead and take a quick peek at that. I think it's always helpful to see more than one way of reviewing that information. So let's go ahead and pull that up here real quick. And we'll pop out of the phone there. Make that a little bit bigger. Here's our tablet interface. Very similar. We have all the receipt or all the information that requires my attention here. We can go ahead and I'm just going to filter down some of the specific ones. We'll just dive into one of these invoice ones. Again, this is a vendor invoice, but same concept. We would see the image here, the receipt, the header, and the coding information. Okay, so all that same detail available, just on a different device. Okay, there's also another interface I kind of like here. It's called a worksheet version. People love Excel and they want to review all those items from a list view here. I can review the coding here, pull up the image, and then I can batch check these off as I'm reviewing them. It just depends on what you like to do as a company and what makes sense for that user. Okay. Now, if I needed to change the coding, I could do that as well, but it just depends on what your users are needing to do as they're reviewing those items. Now, if I log in as that same user from a web browser, I can access much of that same information. Under where it says, "Welcome back, Tom," from my web browser interface, there's an invoice queue where I can click right on, again, see all those invoices that require my approval. Okay, so there's that here. Again, that same information can be available right here. We have that same list view in that worksheet format. If I want to review, I can even make adjustments to the coding from here. And then even after I've approved things, we have an interface where you can look at a list of invoices that you previously or currently need to approve. We have filters and sorting available to focus in on specific jobs or vendors or items that are currently assigned to me for the approval process, or maybe something I approved last week. I want to follow up on how I coded it. I'm looking at another invoice and I need to look at some of that relevant information. Well, in hh2, we can make that available based on what the employee is responsible for, either the invoices they've approved or the jobs or coding they're responsible for. There's a lot of functionality that is packed into this from looking back perspective, rather than just, I only need to look at what I've approved. Well, we have the information here. And being cloud-based, it's very easy to make that information available through our platform. Okay, so those are 3 different review screens. Again, this can be used to look at and review things that I've already coded, but let's just kind of recap and we can check for any questions after this recap here of what we've covered today so far. So we've gone through and shown you how to capture a receipt in our system, whether it's a reimbursement or credit card purchase. We've talked about the customized workflow and approval process. We've talked through importing transactions into hh2 to validate that we haven't missed purchases that need to be accounted for. And then we've talked about the review process and different devices that can be used for the approval. We talked about the phone, the tablet, and then of course here on the web browser. Now, after we go through the approval process, the final step is very simple. Let's make sure that this is into the accounting system, has all the relevant information so we can have correct job cost and get our credit card or other vendors paid. Okay, so what we're gonna do right now, we're gonna log out as Tom, and we're gonna log back in as my admin. Now our admin here is gonna be our final gatekeeper before the data is pushed into the accounting system. We're gonna cover a couple nice tools that can be utilized. So clicking on that same AP menu, we have under our left-hand section here, a section where we can look at all the invoices. So this is a place of, again, looking at that same list of invoices, but as I'm an admin, I can see company-wide, not necessarily looking at items I need to approve, but items I need to get pushed into the accounting system. Now that can be done very easily. There's, as I mentioned, a number of filter tools that we can utilize. One of those, if I use my filter here at the top left, I can add from. It isn't having to do with how things are coded, which we have a lot of coding filters as well to look at different items, but it's coming down here to see the status. And status lets us know where things are at in the approval process. So things that are in a data entry phase, in the approval progress, have already been exported, or are in what we call final review, waiting to be pushed in. Okay, giving you that final review control there. You also can filter down based on different types of documents. So if you're using hh2 to use us for credit cards and reimbursements, you can focus on one of those or both of them in a given day. And again, if you're using us for invoices as well, for your standard AP invoices, you can use that as well. Okay. You could layer on other filters like, hey, I only want to see invoices for the month of October. Go ahead and layer on those filters just like that. Okay, I'm going to delete those just to make sure that we show some relevant data for items that we're going to export. So I'm going to go ahead and add the filter here for final review, meaning items that are ready to go into the accounting system. It'll populate here, and then I can select individual or batch select and then batch export all the invoices that are in final review into the accounting system. And it's really simple. We push the information directly in, just as though you would be hand-keying it in Sage and AP. So once it's in there, you're ready to select those invoices to be paid and to post a job cost as you normally would. We're taking that data entry step completely away. We also push in a URL link so you can view the image and the audit trail of when and who approved the information in hh2, so you have that. So some really nice information there. And of course, we have all that information also in hh2. So a number of really excellent tools that are going to be available. Now at that point, you can kind of forget about hh2 for a minute because you're going to do your payment and your job cost in Sage, but you can come back and utilize hh2 to review some of the information. Once it's been paid in Sage, we even synchronize that back up. So if you're looking at a historical invoice, you can actually see if it's been paid and when. So that automatically comes back in as part of the integration. So a lot of really excellent tools that are available there. Now I want to cover a couple of other admin perspective tools and reporting tools. I just want to make sure there are no questions on what it looks like to get the data out of hh2 before we move on.
No questions that I see.
All right. Perfect. Okay, so One thing that we find is a lot of times we have customers that want to pull up the information and provide it in a report or review it in some fashion. And we want to make that very easy, especially when it comes to the coding and dumping it onto Excel or the images into a PDF. So if I wanted just to dump all the images into a PDF or PDF zip file, I could do that. And then we have like a job summary report. Maybe I want invoices for a particular job. In hh2, we could use one of our filters here. We'll just say we want for the Fort Wayne Officers Club. They'll filter down to that, and I'm going to select those. And I'm actually going to dump this down, but instead of doing like a PDF list of it, I'm going to do what's called a job summary PDF. We have some different filters here of how you want to display and title this report. And we're going to have some different sections turned on here. But when I go ahead and download that, it's going to go ahead and compile a nice little job report for me. And it's going to include those invoices that I had there. So in this job summary report, it's really simple. We have the job summary report for this job, have a table of contents of the invoices that are included. I can toggle to those, and then gives me a breakdown by cost and get those totals there along with the images. Gives you a nice clean way of reviewing that detail. So very, very helpful. A lot of companies utilize that information. Now, I did see a question that popped up, and that's a very great question. So the question is, does the credit card transaction push into the record payments by credit card in AP? And it does not. So unfortunately, that is only a data entry screen. There is no way for us to push or even import into that interface. So when we push credit card transactions in, they're going to get pushed in as an AP invoice. So you're going to have, potentially 100 items for American Express or whomever your card issuer is that will have all the job costs and the image detailed there. So just know that we would love to push to that if we could. That is only a data entry piece. So if you're currently entering that today, just know that that would be ignored when using hh2 because we're pushing directly into AP. So we can get that information in. It's an excellent question though, but yeah, to clarify, we push those in directly into AP. Awesome. So hopefully that was thorough enough there for you. Now, one other piece I wanted to share is oftentimes we have clients that want to check and see who things are waiting on. And we've built in another interface. I'm going to click back on my AP menu called an aging summary. An aging summary is very simple. It's allowing us to see broken down by a specific filter. This is by vendor, items that have been in the system and things that are aging out. If I click on any of these columns here, so if I have 86 invoices for Tough Nail here, once I click on that, it's just going to apply a filter and take me to the invoice list and show me those 86 invoices. So I can go in, oh, I have a question about this one. I can dive down and see who it's waiting on. In addition, maybe I want to just see by employee. So up here at the top right, by user, I'm going to change the filter, and I can very easily see how many invoices and at what aging date that invoice is stuck at in the system, again, using that same function. So very easy to find out who your quick or who your delayed personnel are and getting that information reviewed and approved. Okay, again, we can send like a daily reminder to kind of prod them, but this is a great way for you to view and hold people accountable so you know what in the world they're working on. All right, so those are a couple features there. I don't want to necessarily overshow the product and try to show everything under the sun in one session here. If there's interest or need, well, let me just take a couple minutes here, just since we have some time, just to quickly show you what we do with your standard invoices, and then we'll wrap up to talk a little bit about pricing and implementation for this product. So if you're using our system for standard invoices. We have the ability to automatically pull invoice images in from an email. We can monitor an email inbox, monitor a folder in your network you can scan into or upload from hh2. And you'll have the information come into a queue like this where you can select and organize and delete items that are needed so that they can be routed out with the correct pages. So here you'll accept the pages out, thumbs up approval if these 2 pages are one invoice, and then that becomes an invoice route through the system. After that, you'll actually go to a data entry screen. You'll be able to come in, pull up an invoice that you've accepted. We have some OCR functions, so you can create a template to capture the information, and then you can job cost that, again, using the distribution fields that you have set up. One thing that I like to note is the distribution and the header fields that you use in Sage are automatically synced over as part of our integration. So we'll simply show what you have set up. In this example, you may use different fields than what I have in my header and distribution, and that's okay, because we're pulling from your actual setup. Once you've gone through and done your coding, you route it out for approval. Again, using our custom approval process, routing to users based on their role or whatever your approval process might be. So a lot of functionality there. From the next steps, it's really simple. They can review and approve these AP invoices much like they do the other items in the system, just coming from a different source. Okay, so that's just want to quickly touch on that for anyone that might be interested to understand how we handle that, and just know that it is included as a feature that you can utilize if you would like to in this product. Okay, so with that being said, let's go ahead and open it up for any additional questions before we talk about pricing and implementation. So I'm going to go ahead and we'll swap over here to our website so we can talk a little bit about pricing, and then we'll go from there. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to hh2.com, our hh2 website, and up at the top here we're going to click on products. Be aware that we offer a number of construction solutions that integrate with your Sage 300 and other Sage accounting systems, as touched in the beginning. So if you have interest in those, you can explore on our site. But I'm going to click on document flow at the top here to take us to that product page, and we're going to click on the pricing link right here. Now, the way that our pricing is structured, our pricing is a monthly subscription service to use hh2, and it's billed based on usage. So in hh2, you can have as many users in our system as you would like. If you happen to have 50 people that need to be in the system, that's totally fine. That won't affect your cost from hh2 from a user standpoint. What we do charge based on is your document usage. So today I captured a receipt for a company credit card, and one credit card purchase counts as one document. An invoice, an AP invoice would count as one document, and a reimbursement would count as one document. We don't care how many pages you have. We don't care how many people approve it or touch it. We simply just bill based on unique documents that are new to the system each month. The count will reset, and every month it'll bill you based on actual usage. So if I'm a customer that signs up, we don't know what you're actually going to use the product for. So we're going to bill you your initial month. Every customer signs up at the lowest tier. Now there's 2 columns here. The Pro Support is year 1 pricing. After that, we have our standard pricing. The Pro Support allows us to give more dedicated support to our customers, especially in their first year. And that is something you can continue with if you'd like, or you could revert to our standard pricing if you don't need that extra support, but that is required for year 1. As you are rolling out hh2, some months you could be at higher tiers and some months you could be at lower tiers. Again, if you have 1 month, you have 800 credit card purchases that you route through the system, you'd be billed at the 669 tier, and the next month you have a slower month. You're not on as many projects and not need to make as many purchases, so your costs will fluctuate down to a lower amount. Now, in the price, we include the integration. We include our maintenance and support, so there's not an annual fee that you have to pay. We simply pay the monthly subscription to use our service. Now, in addition to that, we do charge some implementation fees. That varies based on the customer. So we'll talk with you about your needs, what you're wanting to set up, and we get you a quote on the implementation aspect of it. But after you pay the one-time implementation fee, it's simply a monthly subscription, and there is no contract. Our goal is to earn your business month in and month out. So just know that it fluctuates, and then we're here to earn your business long term.